Welcome to the Grimfrost Podcast. Today's guest is Clive Standen, actor, Shepherd of the Sea, and Rollo in the TV series Vikings. So, welcome to Sweden.
It's been great. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So, do you recognize the furniture?
I know it's going to bring me right back.
Yeah, because you're actually finally in the throne of Kattegat right now, aren't you?
Yeah,
just
Rollo finally got on the throne.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually
we had to disband the show. We had to knock it all down.
but that's actually the throne from the show. So that's pretty cool. What do you think of Sweden so far?
It's been great. I went out for a dinner with Gustav Skarsgård the other evening, and I was like, "This is beautiful, the sunshine." And he was like, "Well, you have come at the best time of the year. It's not always like this, but I'm taking it." And it's just the train up to come and see you guys. It's just forests and lakes. It's just idyllic.
Yeah, I think he's right. This time of year is when you get the good weather. It's nice. Otherwise, I always recommend people to come in August, because usually the weather is a little bit more stable, it's a little bit warmer, but this time of year with this weather is amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I agree with him.
I was inspired as well. I mean, we got to go up to Burka and we just took the ferry over to the island, but seeing the kayaks and things out there on the archipelagos, I really want to do that now as an actual trip. Maybe come for like 4 days, take a tent on my back and just kayak and just hit all the different kind of islands.
Yeah, and that's only Lake Mälar.
Yeah,
that's a lake. Like if you go like to the Salt Lake, which is like outside Stockholm, like in the Baltic, you have like thousands of little islands you can go to.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So I used to do that as a kid.
Yeah.
So you went to Birka, but you also what else did you do while you were here?
I just went to Lucy was with me for a little while. We went to just walk around Stockholm, see all the different districts of Stockholm. As I said, met up with Gustav. Yeah. It's great. Do you know what? We're so lucky. We have a cast where we live all around the world.
Yeah.
Some of us are in America, some of us are in Scandinavia, some of us are in England, France.
Yeah.
And we all really get along. And
that's great.
Because of the success of the show, we often get to do Comic Cons and the like, and that all brings us all together. And I'm so lucky that I get on with everyone, because it's a real treat. Like, he's come to Sweden. Just send him a text. I didn't even tell him I was coming. It's on the day, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm in town." He's like, "Great, dinner tonight." And it's brilliant to have friends all over the world.
Yeah, that must be amazing. So, but you went to Eifer, I hear, party a little bit.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Rollo and Grimfrost hitting the town. That's how we eat out.
And then you're gonna do Midsummer and all that stuff together with us.
Yeah,
tomorrow actually.
I can't wait.
I mean, we're recording this now, but
Yeah. But another happy accident. I remember when you were kind of like, "Hey, I'm in town," and you're like, "Well, you need to get out of town before Midsummer because everything's going to close up." And I'm like, "Well, I'm here." And thanks for the hospitality.
Oh yeah, it's great to have you. So going into the acting, then, like, I mean, not to, I don't want to brag. I actually acted a little bit in a movie myself, only about 10 minutes, but like I had some lines and stuff like that. And my experience was from that I totally underestimated how difficult it is to be an actor, just to deliver a line in a way that is like that you don't overact, or it's a true craftsmanship. So what motivated you to become an actor in the first place? I mean, like how did that come into your life?
It's a good question, because I didn't start off, and there's a lot of children that kind of just have this desire to show off, and you can tell from an early age that they just want to be an actor, a dancer, a singer. And I wasn't one of those kids. In fact, I was obsessed with Muay Thai boxing. I was an international Thai boxer when I was 14. I was training in Thailand, and I thought that was where my life was going to take me. There's two stories. Both of them are true. One was a girl. There was a girl who was at school that I fancied, and she did drama. And she was like, "Well, you do drama. It's the one subject you don't have to do any homework for." And I'm like, "You're in it. There's no homework. What's not to to enjoy here?" But then from there, I had this incredible teacher, Sheila Plant, who was my first teacher when I was at school, and she kind of took me to one side and said, "You need to take this a little bit more seriously. If you applied yourself, if you actually tried rather than goofing off at the back and trying to chat up this girl, you'd be a really good actor." because a lot of these kids really want to do it and they can't. And something about you don't even try and you can do it. You know, it's like my Goodwill Hunting moment.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed as well. Sometimes, you know, it's not the parent that sees the star in the child, it's a teacher.
Yeah.
And I took that and I ran with it. The other true story was I was actually inspired by my mum, because my mum got ill. And she panicked a little bit and she thought, what do I want to do? And, you know, if her career changes with the illness, and she thought she'd always wanted to do like drama therapy, maybe with Down syndrome children, and, you know, work with, you know, drama therapy as to help people out. And she was a mature student. She went back to university at the age of 40. So at the same time this was going on, I had my mum kind of acting like a hippie student again, and she was bringing home like 20-year-old guys and girls to do coursework because she was doing drama. So they were working on plays, they were dissertations and things. At De Montfort University, I grew up in Leicestershire. And it was kind of like weird new age kind of theatre as well, kind of, you know, some really, you know, kind of cutting edge stuff. And you know, when you're younger and you see older guys kind of doing it, you kind of get inspired. So I kind of had that going on as well. So I think I was slightly being groomed towards it without knowing it. And then I joined the National Youth Theatre, and I did a play with Eddie Redmayne when we were 18 at Shakespeare's Globe. And from that point on, it was drama school. I'm going to do this, and tunnel vision.
Yeah. So you sort of touched upon it a bit, but like, are there any common traits among people who want to become actors? I mean,
well, this is what all I can speak about is myself, and you know, I said about the kids that you can just see at an early age. It's this desire to show off, and if we're really honest with ourselves, it kind of is that still.
Yeah.
But I got into acting kind of, what I enjoyed was drawing attention away from myself rather than towards myself. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed, you know, you get me to do a PowerPoint presentation, I'm nervous now. Being Clive, I am. I mean, you know, stuttering over an axe and things like that. It's not me, but you tell me to be somebody else. You tell me to be this, you know, this murdering kind of barbarian, whatever. I can hide behind that and I can let loose.
I kind of hear what you're saying, because that's sort of me as the front man of the band I'm in.
Yeah.
Like on stage, I'll grab that limelight and I'll stay in it and just like try to bring everybody into the show, like to be the connection between the band and the fans and all that stuff. But off stage, I'd rather just sit and read a book or watch a movie or something, you know? I don't care.
but if you come at acting that way, as I did, I kind of see that child who wants to show off. I see them putting a veneer on top of something that's an exaggeration. And if you come at it from actually hiding yourself, and it's more about, I want to get inside this human condition and I want to copy to it's about specificity, copying something to the bare bones of what it is and not making it bigger or smaller. And that's what I get a kick out of. Because, you know, it's like if you get a child to follow you around the room and say, you know, copy, they'll probably 9 times out of 10 want you to see that they're copying. So they put on an extra. If you've got a limp, the limp will slightly be bigger than it is, because they'll go, see, I can see he's got a limp. And that's bad acting for me. It's about trying to nail that character. And obviously it's kind of, for want of a better phrase, like kind of celestial let's pretend. You know, you're kind of playing let's pretend, but you get caught, you know.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it kind of, to me, it kind of sounds like almost like being introvert gets you more in touch with, like, first of all, emotions. So I guess that's important as an actor, obviously, but also that you can really find that nuances in like things as movement, like mimicry, like how the face moves and all that stuff. Would you say that's correct? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, you don't really think about what your body does so much unless you are really getting into of a trait of a human, you know, a tick, so to speak. But when it comes to the emotions, it's just about really just feeling it and letting it exist, letting the audience come to you.
Yeah,
I think that's what the best actors do. You kind of almost, you ask that question, you just let it hang, and people read into you. I love it sometimes when you can't read an actor and you're really just asking questions. What's he thinking? What's he thinking? What's he thinking? And you're drawing the audience in. Bad acting tends to be when you're forcing it on somebody.
That's when you hear people having an inner dialogue and they speak loud when they're not moving their mouth.
Yeah,
It's like what is daytime TV.
To go back to Vikings, you just reminded me, and Travis Fimmel was a master at this. That it's very rare. We get new directors come in. The Vikings in general didn't speak much. And I think as a culture, just hanging out with you guys, it's kind of true to say that words aren't wasted. But then, there wasn't as many words in the Viking language. It was very I'm angry, I'm hungry. And Michael kind of approached it that way and made the dialogue very specific. But then we took it further, and because they filmed it almost like a movie, we had Johan Renck, this incredible director of the first 3 episodes, who's inspired probably how the arc of the whole series went. Then he filmed it like a movie, so it's kind of the shots allow you to look into the characters. So we actually cut lots of dialogue. And for the beginning, Michael used to get a bit frustrated because you were like cutting away all this hard work, but it didn't need it. And Travis sometimes would cut down a massive speech just to a couple of lines because he knew that the camera's going to be asking, what's he thinking, what's he thinking, what's he thinking? So you would get it. You don't need to say it. Just,
Yeah, and again, just going back to my own experience, like as a frontman, like sometimes, you see people who are frontmen, they talk a lot to the audience. I like to, like in the first little spot where there is a little break where everybody gets to drink a little bit of water, tuning their instruments.
Yeah.
I like to stand in the center stage with the spotlight on me and just not even raise the microphone to my mouth, just look around and watch the people for like up to half a minute.
Yeah.
And that's, you can see what kind of the tension that builds up between you and the audience. And so I kind of see, because in a way I am acting, because that's not who I really am. That's me on stage. But yeah, so I totally see. And we're going to touch a little bit more on Vikings later on and Johan Renck and all that. But we kind of wanted to talk more about like how you started out. You said you went to like drama school, and I wanted to bring this up because Arvid told me this funny story that you had earlier when you talked yesterday, I think, about Michael Caine, because I think he was a guest lecturer at your university. I love Michael Caine, by the way. I think he's awesome. I always enjoyed his films. So could you share that with us? Because I thought it was kind of funny.
Oh, that was before I went to drama school. I was in the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain, and we did this show. And he's one of the patrons of the MYT and the MYMT. And he came down to see the performance. And afterwards, there's always that photo opportunity. Him and his wife came, and we're all standing together, the cast. And I'm standing next to Michael Caine, and he puts his arm around me, and he goes, "Always remember to put your arm around the most important person in the picture," which is just so sweet because he's put his arm around me, and he was like, and then he turns around and he goes, "'Cause that way you can't get cut from the picture." And he winked at me, and I've never forgotten that. And it's so true, isn't it? Because it's like you're just gonna get in there, put your arm around Spielberg, and they have to see who the arm belongs to.
Yeah.
But it was such a sweet little thing, and it just reminds me of all those little things. I've followed Michael Caine's career, and whenever he's doing these little lectures for actors, he's it's those little peccadillos. Like he'll be like, "Never blink when the camera's on you, because they'll cut away to the other person," and you start seeing the way he acts. It's really bad habits to teach an actor, but true. Yeah.
That is so fun. Like what a character, and you can kind of tell he has like a cheeky side. So you can kind of tell from the way he acts and all that stuff. So it's kind of funny. So you were talking about that stage play that you were in, and was that your first acting job, or did you do anything else before that?
Yeah, well, I did. I always thought I was going to be a theatre actor, really, genuinely, honestly. I come from a small town. The idea of being on TV, let alone films, was just alien to me. Theatre was something that looked achievable, and I was good, and I cared, and I did my research. I even stopped doing theatre studies at school and went on to do a BTEC in performing arts, because at theatre studies, I'd already read the books, and it was 80% theory, 20% practical. And I'm like, I want to be an actor. And I've read these books. You're not going to teach me how to act by teaching me about the history of theatre. I've done that. So I ended up doing a performing arts course where I had to, I can't sing to this day, but we had to sing. I'm a double threat, because I had to learn to do contemporary dance. Because even still on this course, it was like, 50% practical acting, and then there was 20% dance, 20% singing, and a bit of theory. So that was the most acting I could do before I went to drama school. So I ended up learning to dance through that. Theatre was the thing. And then I went to drama school, and it's all theatre. And you come out, and that's the best way to try and get an agent. I went to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, which is the oldest drama school in the world. Brilliant actors have been there, like Benedict Cumberbatch and Jim Broadbent, Gary Oldman, all sorts of. But it just seemed like that's where my course was going to go. And my very first professional play was The Intention of Love by Tom Stoppard at Salisbury Playhouse. And it's a weird one. You change agents. I suddenly got an American agent, which was bizarre because I did like 15 minutes in this 2-hour Christmas movie, Tom Brown's School Days. It wasn't a Christmas movie, but it was on at Christmas in England. But the 15 minutes I had were like non-stop on screen, like full 15 minutes. If you tuned in for those 15 minutes, you would probably assume I was the lead character.
Oh, wow.
But I wasn't in it again. And to this day, I think this American agent that signed me kind of like, I think it was shown on Thanksgiving in America. And he was like, who's this guy? I want to meet this guy. And that's what he said. He wanted to meet me. And I was like, my English agent rings, and this American agent wants to meet you. And I'm like, does he want to sign me? It's a long way to go for a coffee. And I'm like, well, I've never been to LA before, and I kind of went out there and I met him, and it was great. Actually, it's one of these kind of things that, you, like I said, never could have dreamed of. I met this guy, Brad Leffler, his name was. Had a meeting with him. Even that was funny, actually. But I was sitting in this waiting room in England. They have, you just have your agent, the agent's assistant, and over there's big offices, and they've got like 4 receptionists before you even get through to the agents and assistants and then the agents, because it's like Fort Knox, because there's so many crazy people that want to be an actor. And I'm sitting in this chair, and this guy comes out, and he's like, hey, yeah, just put him on hold. Yeah. And he looks right at me, and he goes, hi. So I get out of my chair with my hand thinking, this is Brad. Yeah. He's like, I'm Daniel. I'm not here for you. Sit back down. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, and it was one of these comical things. Just as I sat back down, this lovely guy comes out, goes Clive Standen, and I'm like straight back on my feet again. And that's Brad. And so the next day, I get a phone call in the morning, and he goes, we would love to sign you. And I'm like, great. And he said, what are you doing today? I said, nothing. He goes, 4:00, you got an audition for No Country for Old Men.
Oh, wow.
And it was for Josh Brolin's role. I mean, obviously I was way too young. I was in my 20s, but he was like, we want you to meet Francis Mazer, this casting director. I was like, this doesn't happen.
Straight into the hot water there.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I didn't know it was going to be this massive Oscar-winning film or whatever, but that was unheard of. From where I came from, I was like, you don't get to audition for movies. Yeah. So it kind of changed the course of everything, because the other side of it is that once you get an agent like that, they don't really want you doing theatre. They don't want to take 10% of the money that you get and then you're tied up in that play for 6 months. They would rather have you out of work for 6 months and have the chance of booking one of those big movies in 5 or 6 years. And Vikings
so what was that? How you finally landed the role of Rollo? Was that how that happened?
Yeah, I mean there was some years in between. The first hurdle I found is that I was going out to Los Angeles for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time, leaving my family behind. Going out, getting a little cheap Airbnb and hire car, rental car. But the problem I was having is I didn't have a visa. So they would see me, and I would meet directors. I mean, I got to meet so many people, and it would get down to that wire when they were like, "We love this guy," and then they would like, "We start filming in 2 weeks." And because I was always told by my agents, like, if they like you, they'll get the visa, they'll sort it out, but they need the time. It takes like a month at least to get the
I know it takes about a month. I mean there is no real fast track for anyone really.
No, and that's it. So as soon as they say, has he got a visa? And you're like, no. They're like, well, we start filming in 2 weeks, we can't take that risk. And I would have to come home with my tail between my legs going, I could have been the guy. It's just a piece of paper. So after eventually I got all that, and again the irony, I got all that in. I got my O1 visa sorted out. I went over to LA and they didn't book anything. And I came back with my tail between my legs. And then as soon as I was actually on the plane, I'd done Camelot between then for Stars with Joseph Fiennes, Ava Green, and did a season of that. So I had that as like a kind of a calling card. And and Michael Hurst was meant to write Camelot. The first couple of episodes I got through were written by him, but he had to drop out for another movie, and a guy called Chris Chibnall took over. But I came back from my that current year's pilot season. And when I was at the airport, I had an email saying there's this show called Vikings, and Michael Hurst, and that's all I knew. Michael Hurst. I'm like, I'm put everything into it. So that's where it started.
So how did it feel? I mean, as an up and coming actor, like fairly unknown, I would say, like to finally land such a big role in a TV series. I mean, obviously you don't know at that time if it's going to be successful or not, but how did it feel to land that a big role, like the character of like the role of Rollo?
Well, at the time, I did all my auditions to play Ragnar.
Oh yeah.
So Rollo came out of nowhere. So I did 9 auditions. I think originally, this is a lie. If I want to be completely correct, when I first went in to read for Vikings, Frank Moselle, the casting director, who I'd met through other projects, they were only auditioning Rollo, Ragnar, Floki as just sides, just because they wanted to, they were like, we're going to need lots of Vikings. We'll just start with these and just get a sense of who people are. And I was given the sides for Rollo. And I read these sides, and he actually said on that day, he said, you're more of a Ragnar. That's the casting director. There was no producers, and Michael wasn't in the room. It was just me and the casting director. He said, you're more of a Ragnar. But unfortunately, they're going out to people like Viggo Mortensen, Mads Mikkelsen, because it's History Channel's first ever series. They're going for big money offers for people. And I know Viggo's one of my heroes, and I imagine he was just like, he's got to be really interested. Mags has done it all before. Why would he do that again? But so I got away, and then they said, well, look, they're seeing these big, they're having meetings with these big actors, but they still want you to tape. So my second audition was a self-tape. I did it. I think I was on holiday in Cornwall at the time. I remember because I had I was right next to the sea and the waves were crashing, and I was terrified that the noise in the background was going to put them off my tape. Anyway, so I auditioned for Ragnar. Cut to another 7 auditions for Ragnar, and then they flew me out to Dublin to meet Johan Renck. They'd set up this room where they had a television screen, which I'd never done an audition like this before. They had a television screen behind me with the camera pointing at me, and they were all in front of me. So they were kind of watching me on the telly as I acted, which was really off-putting because I can almost see the bigger face of me just in the corner of my eye as I'm acting. I also, then I was auditioning for Ragnar. The guy that was auditioning for Rollo, and I wish I could remember his name right now, is the Norwegian actor with the big ginger beard who was in Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah.
That was who they were looking at for Rollo. So we actually read together. He read as Rollo, I read as Ragnar. Then we came back in and they said, oh, do you want to read these new sides of Ragnar on my own? Then I went home. And then I got told it was between me and 2 other guys for Ragnar. And so it had gone from Viggo Mortensen to Clive, you're in with a shot of playing Ragnar Lothbrok. I wish I knew the other guy, but I know, obviously, as we all know, one of the guys was Travis Fimmel, who had auditioned in his kitchen, in his Australian accent, in Australia, as a last minute. I had a 9 minutes. It was he just auditioned at the last minute because the problem that I didn't know at the time was Michael didn't want me as Ragnar. He was like, Clive is a great actor, but he is not my Ragnar. He was waiting for something in an actor that he knew he wanted. He saw it in Travis, which is why Travis didn't even do the accent. It was like he was given a day or something, and something he did in that audition, Michael just went, that's what I'm looking for. I'm at home in England. I know I'm down to the last 3. I'm just waiting every day, like they're going to make a decision soon. And my agent rings, and I remember my agent tapping the keyboard, like so disinterested. And she was like, so just so you know, you didn't get it. And I'm like, yeah. And by this time as well, I'd done a film called Hammer of the Gods, which was a kind of Viking-esque film, and I'd grown my hair long, and I had a beard, and I just kept it because I was just that kind of like manifest. You're going to be Ragnar Lothbrok. And she said I hadn't got the role, and that was it. She was like, "Yep," and they said, "Look, they're really impressed with you. The producers love you, but they're just going to look out for another role in the series. It might be season 3, might be season 4, but you will be in this show. You've made some friends." And that wasn't good enough for me. I went home and I shaved that beard off, and I was like, I got to move on with my life. It's like 3 months wasted or whatever. And then I think it wasn't the next day. It was the day after. My agent rings again, and they're like, well, we just had a really bizarre phone call. Michael Hurst, it's decided that it would be really interesting if you would be interested in playing the role of Rollo. And I had read the first 3 episodes, and Rollo was written to be the 50-year-old cousin of Ragnar. He was a lot older, and it was almost no disrespect to Michael, but it did ring true like Asterix and Obelix. He was like this big, he was written to, and that's probably why they were seeing the guy, with the ginger hair, and he was meant to be this big, larger-than-life guy. And they said, no, Michael's turning him into the brother, and he thinks there's going to be a really good dynamic between both of you being a similar age and the fact that you've done this. And so I'm in. But then I was like, you must, I don't know the last time you shaved your beard, but when you've had a beard like this and you shave, you feel like a choir boy.
Yeah.
I just looked in the mirror and like, what have I done? I don't look like a Viking at all. But my superpower is I grow a beard quickly. I was like, within a month it was.
So you have a 5 o'clock shadow by 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I shaved this morning. Yeah.
I hear you. So, so now you landed the role. Like they called you back. They wanted you as Rollo. What happens next in that process then? I mean, obviously, it's a lot of preparations as an actor, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I go to work, boom, research, and as you said, Rollo. And it's obvious that there's only one real Rollo in Viking history that this could be. But then we had a character in season 1 called Leif, and his father was called Eric, Leif Erikson. And you're like, he may not have a lot to do in this season, but he's probably going to be Leif, and that's where the story's going. Get sacrificed in episode 7. So you're like, maybe I'm just a Rollo, because Michael started him off as such a base character that you're like, he didn't really ring true of this Duke of Normandy. So no one was safe. There was a lot of that page turning, and the character's dead. And Michael did say to me at the very beginning about the brothers, he said, look, I've changed this. I've got some faith in you. And he kind of was you see the little twinkly, kind of mischievous child in him, and it's true, and I can admit it now because we've gone through it, and me and Travis are best mates. But he says there's going to be something. You really wanted to play Ragnar, didn't you? He said, well, Rollo really wants to be Ragnar, and he was like, I think it's going to be really interesting that you're almost like the never the bride, always the bridesmaid, and you're going to have to watch him play Ragnar. How's that feel? And it was like, and he was already thinking like that at the beginning. And he said, look, we're going to take this character, we're going to throw him on the floor. He's going to smash him into 1,000 pieces. And he says, you and me are going to piece him back together, episode by episode, scene by scene, season by season, until he becomes this guy. So I did know he was going to be the Duke of Normandy, but it's just anything changes. Maybe you think you're not doing a good enough job, and they're just going to out you.
Yeah. So knowing then that's where your character was going to become the Duke of Normandy, how did the research process go into creating your character? I mean, what is it like to portray an historical character?
Yeah, I mean, I feel there's an extreme responsibility to try and get somebody as right as you can possibly be. And I have to be honest, this is Torbjorn Haar's words, because we sat talking when he joined the show, and this is kind of, he just put it into words. But he's like, when he's in the theatre and he's playing an historical character or a real life person, you imagines him at the back of the stalls watching him, judging him. You're playing me, make sure you get me right. And that's kind of how I think I feel. You've got to do your homework, but also with that, because he's dead and I can't meet him. It's not like playing with these.
And he's also like almost part mythological at this time as well, because there's not much known about him.
Yeah, and that's what I did. So when I start doing my research, I love it any character I play. It's that classic, there's my truth, your truth, and then the real truth. So that's what I start doing. So I start looking at the documentation, like Dudo Saint Quentin, who's writing for the Duke of Normandy in 9/11. He's recounting something 100 years, after it happened. And he's also been paid by the current Duke of Normandy. So there's a very good chance it's like, portray my lineage in the best possible way or I'll cut your head off. So it's not necessarily true. And Rollo was written to be this amazing ruler who apparently, left a gold ring hanging from an orchard or something, and then no one stole it for all these years. All these silly little things that, that you go, okay, well, that's an interpretation of a person. It's very two-dimensional in times. And then you've got the sagas, and you've got, Gangaluf, Rollo the Walker, and what he stood for. And he seems a little bit more, stealing sheep and it seems a little bit more living on the margins. And then you've got all these characters in between that you just steal a little bit from. And you go Vikings, and I was talking about how there's this story about how the Viking bodyguards in Constantinople wouldn't bow down to the king, so they lifted the foot up. I remember reading that and going, that's the kind of thing Rollo would do.
Yeah.
You know, so I stole that for him as part of his character. I'm like, that's going to come up. And I always thought, actually, I talked to Michael about when we went to France, that would be the kind of thing he'd do to the French king in Paris. You know, you're meant to kiss his foot and just lift him off his throne. Or I always thought it would be on a horse, just push him off the back of a horse or something. But so you steal bits and bobs, you know, and I know as well, like Michael stole bits and bobs. I think Ragnar wasn't meant to stay in the show for as long as he envisioned. So, you know, the whole Ragnar jumping out of the coffin and surprising everyone, that was Björn Ironside in history. And, you know, so he's stolen bits. So I'm like, well, I got artistic license to do that too.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you, when you research like any character really, but like specifically for this part, did you mostly do the research alone, or was it like a group effort also with the other cast members to make the characters connect as well in the actual TV show? I mean, it would be weird if you portray Rollo in a way where it doesn't connect with Ragnar, for instance.
Well, that was the one thing that I was able to take license with, because they weren't brothers. So you're like, they're living 100 years apart more. And Ragnar is it's almost like the King Arthur kind of mythical, you know, legend of the sagas. And so, you know, Travis had a very different way of working than I did, but there were similar. Like Gustav, for instance, he is Swedish. He's Scandinavian. He takes it very seriously, and we're very like-minded actors, and we would just riff off each other and things. So you kind of like pool all your research together, and just those conversations come out, and he can help me with more of the intricate details, because he's been brought up in the country, and, you know, it's been more of a part of him. But yeah, a lot of it's done a lot of it's at books. It's just I just taken everything around me, because I wasn't able to come here. I wasn't able to kind of go to Scandinavia. And one, didn't have the time, and two, you know, it wasn't practical. So you try and take everything in. And Michael was always there, and he's, you know, it's his vision. You know, it's that kind of, when you question a writer, you have to remember that he's probably questioned what he's written far, far more times than you have. So you have to trust in that as well.
Yeah, writing is always it's write and rewrite.
Yeah,
like that's it.
But it's always that joke as well. You get actors coming up to the writer going, "I don't think my character would say that," and you're like, "Well, he does, because I wrote it." So.
I hear you. So Rollo is probably my favorite character, actually, in the Vikings TV series. I mean, they're all great, especially, you know, but because I think the series is amazing. But what's his main traits? What would you say like defines Rollo as a character in the Viking series, and what motivates him to, as you say, like he's pretty much just smashed into pieces, and then what motivates him to get back up and like try to rise to power again? You know.
Well, yeah, he's tenacious. What motivates him, I think, is, if we're really honest, I think every human being has this in different levels. If you think about being on a spectrum, some people can control this trait, and some people, it almost turns into narcissism. But it's a desire to be seen, and a desire to be heard, and to exist, and to be taken seriously, and to have a place at the table. Some people know how to do it. Some people know what they're good at. You know, what's that old saying, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Some people are good at lots of things and they can choose. Some people have to find their way. It's the old proverb that Johan Renck gave me at the beginning of the show, which is, everybody wants to be loved. If they can't be loved, they want to be admired. If they can't be admired, they want to be feared. And if they're not feared, they'll be hated. And I think that's what I started off with Rollo, and I think we all have that in different degrees, and he really just wants to be seen. He wants to be loved, and that's where he goes to these lengths of hatred and betrayal and things, because he just is like, well, I'm right here, you know, look at me. And what I think is his love story is when he goes to France. As much as I'm a Vikings fan as well, I would watch the show if I wasn't in it, and I can't help but look from the outside and go, I would hate him for the things he does. But I play him, and I understand that he can't find it there. His one real betrayal is his betrayal to himself. He should have got out of there so much earlier, because, you know, he's got this competition with his brother. His brother everyone was going to be equal, but it seems like some people are more equal than others, and he gets left behind. He's also he's in love with a woman called Lagatha, and it's clear to me that he was dating her, he was with her first, and she left him for his brother. And they're making children in front of him. He's Uncle Rollo, and he's sticking around because he's got this ability just to punish himself. But the real love story is he actually finally goes to Paris, and he does betray his brother. But what he does get there is he gets the first man in his life to go, I believe in you. We need you. You're the answer to all of our prayers. And he has a woman go, and not at first, but there's a woman go, I love you. I love who you are, and I love what you stand for, and you can protect me, you can protect my country. And he has that, and he can't let it go. And that's why he stays. He finds his love story. But he has to go through all of that to realize where he belongs in life. And I think, it's a form of, I always used this analogy of self-harm with him. His physical pain is his way of just avoiding all the emotional pain. He's a very emotional guy, and on the surface, he seems like just a big meathead warrior. Yeah. And Floki has that line where he says like the warrior never doesn't reveal his heart until the axe reveals it, and that's Rollo he's talking about. And it's the people that hurt themselves, they cut themselves because they want to just not feel, and he does that. And then the biggest archetypal scene to make this example is the scene where he fights Björn in the rain.
Oh yeah,
Siggy's dead. He blames himself. We can probably blame Rollo. It's kind of, the way he treated her at the end. And he just doesn't want to feel anymore. And he's like, I want to die. And those people will kill him. He's drunk. He's not aware. He's almost going to just feed himself to the mob. And Björn comes along. He's just like, just take away the pain. Knock me out. I don't want to think. And I think I love playing that scene as well, because it's one of those scenes where, as an actor, you're always in the moment. And when you do stunts, you always have to be one step ahead. Yeah. It's such a tough scene to play because you've got all these, and it's bare knuckle fighting as well. It's not sword work, which sometimes you get a little bit more time to breathe. But when fists are thrown and you're throwing each other on the ground and you add the rain and the mud, and you've got to be like, right, in a minute he's going to swing this punch. I got to react. I got to move. And at the same time, that emotion is playing like, hurt me more, I hate myself, and tears in my eyes. And and then know that the big moment, and it's real. It's stupid sometimes. Helen Shaver directed the episode. When I get knocked out, she's like, do you want a pad? Because we can hide it under the mud. And I'm like, no, I want to feel the stars. And I always do that because I think I can get through one. I don't mind going, oof, smacking down. But then when they're like, that was great, but can you just do it? Or the camera wasn't going to, I did that like 3 or 4 times. I literally went home with thinking of giving myself concussion.
I bet a bit of Muay Thai experience came in handy on that scene.
Well, that's the one thing I can relate to as well, is I learned by doing Muay Thai to, this is going to sound really macabre, enjoy pain.
Yeah.
But you don't enjoy the pain. You learn to absorb the pain as like a dull feeling. So it's not ow, it's like and you just take it. And that's why I can be a big pussy when I get a slap or something like that. That pain's different. If you cut yourself with a paper cut, that's sharp pain, it hurts. But a dull thud, a punch, a kick, a knee, you learn to just absorb it.
I hear exactly what you say. I didn't start doing martial arts until I was 43, and the first person I actually trained with was Josh Barnett, like the MMA champ. Yeah. So I learned then to accept pain. But I was gonna actually get into that that whole thing with damn it, I lost it now. Crap, we'll get back to it later. Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to ask you, but we'll probably get back to it later anyways, because I want to talk to you a little bit more about the role of like the whole TV series and all that stuff. But what's your take on Rollo? Are there any certain parts of him as a character that you specifically like or dislike?
I mean, I always say my job as an actor is to kind of ask really deep and dark questions of myself and then put them up on the screen for other people to judge. It's not my place to judge him because a lot of it can be me. It's just, that's the acting really in its bare bones is what would I do in that situation? How can I relate? And then you piece it together with what you see when you've observed it. That's why you can't really be a great actor unless you've really lived a life a little bit. But I do love his tenacity never to give up. I have that in me. I'll always fall forwards and get back up on my feet. I like to just keep going like a bull in a china shop until I can get there and see the wood from the trees. And I kind of feel that we have that in common. But there are aspects. I mean, But then I mix it with the culture as well. It's a culture of it's a harsh time to live. It's be or be killed sometimes, and that's where I kind of put down. I justify it sometimes, like the decisions he makes. It's like, well, what is the other decision? What is the alternative? It's usually death, But yeah, I mean, it is just that ability to get knocked down and get back up, and he is a buffoon at times. But I kind of think that kind of almost stupid ability just to throw himself into things is what makes him accomplished. I mean, the whole getting baptized in Christianity, who will be Christian? I will. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but he senses something. He senses this is an opportunity. And, and he just he's that guy. He jumps into the deep end and just goes, I'll figure out how to swim.
So I kind of came back to know what I was going to ask, because you said also he, at that point where Siggy's dead and he feels responsible, do you feel that he also has a little bit less sense of self-preservation than most other characters or most other people?
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely takes that sense of the Viking way of the day of your death and the length of your life was fated when you were born. So who cares? And it's almost slightly dangerous for him.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with the berserker elements of the eating magic mushrooms and just going with not wearing any armor at all and just throwing himself in, he's a terrifying prospect to encounter. But yeah, I do. I think he has a slight. You meet some people that are almost like a live wire underneath their skin.
Yeah,
and they just have a death wish. He's that, but because he's so grounded, I think that's why it's hidden. He's not a light. Like Floki's light. Yeah. Floki's like this mercurial kind of tornado. And if Rollo's a volcano.
Yeah,
you do not want to be around when he explodes.
So how much of Clive is there in the character Rollo?
There is. I mean, he's me. It's weird. I mean, it's tough to talk about because one of my things is I don't like talking about people that aren't in the room. But I have a brother. We have our ups and downs. I love him dearly. He's that classic. Whenever I see him doing wrong, or he's in the wrong, and other people are, I'll defend him to the day I die. But then when in person, and I kind of saw that with Ragnar and Rollo, and I kind of feel like there's parts of me that play him, and there's parts of me that's him, and I definitely developed more Rolloisms as the show went on. And it's just it's little things like Rollo has this kind of this, and I never used to do that. And you can see me I'll be putting up some shelves at home, and I'll get it slightly, the level will be slightly off, and the crazy bear lives inside me somewhere.
I totally understand that. Well, so going back a little bit, you already talked a little bit about Jon Rank and his importance to the whole show in whole, but can you tell me a little bit more about his influence on Vikings, like the series, especially in the beginning, and also maybe like how he interacted with the actors?
That's a great question, because he's one person that I feel really lucky to talk about, because I mean I did think he's taught me so much as well. Because you talked about how much did you know about the Vikings when I took on the show, and Johan was great for my playing of Rollo too. I mean, he just he saw straight away. He said, "You're a big guy, and you're playing the big guy." Rollo is meant to be. All the characters say he's like a fearless warrior. No one can beat him in battle. You've got big shoes to fill here, Clive. But he was great, because in the first kind of we were lucky. We had couple of weeks of, about a week of, they call them camera tests. So you do the scenes, but they don't necessarily use them. It's to see the colors, the costumes, everything, just to make sure the look and the tone and everything is right. And sometimes they'll use those. A couple of them were used. And he would come to me and he'd be like, "Why are you doing this? Why? I'm big, Rollo." Oh, he's like, "Just be. You are big. Let all the other guys be. Oh, we're big. We're tough guys. Big. We want to take on Rollo. Just be." And it's like we talked about it. Let them come to you. You're just Rollo. You know, and I'd do this acting, and I'd be like, do a speech, and I go, you go, why did you sniff there? You think it makes you tough when you sniff? Oh, I'm a big man. He's like, no. And he would take me to one side, and this is what I loved more than anything. It's like working with Ingrid Bergman. He would one put into your mind a subtext that no one would really sense if you were watching it at home, but it would give you something different to play in this scene, and he would tinker. He was like a mad scientist. He would like just be like, I remember I did a scene, it was actually one of the first scenes when Ragnar goes out to pee, and I'm left with Lagertha, and I touch her, and you know, and she's like, you were, you know, not so great a man, great warrior, not so great a man. And I'm sitting there asking about the children, and he just one take, and he just goes, "You hate these children." I'm like, "No, I don't. No, because me and Michael had talked about Björn, you know, I'm his uncle Björn." He's like, "In this take, you hate them because of everything you haven't got. You know, they could be your children." She's sitting there, and you know, he's tinkering, and you do it, and it's always in private, and I love that. It's never like, "Hey, I'm just going to direct, and everyone's going to." He will like, and then you'll go and you'll go and do it, and you'll go, "Wow, it just felt so different." He will like, "See, probably what I'm not," and he'll be like, "I'm not going to use that take at all." But yeah, now you've stopped trying to do the same thing over and over and over again. Now I've fucked with your head. Yeah. You know, so now you're a bit confused. Now let's do another one, and then something new will come out. And he was also very good with me anyway. I don't know what he was like with other people, but he would sometimes go, "Why are you giving me this shit?" He'd come in private, take me around the corner. "Oh, shit, it's horrible. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "No, don't do that. Just do it." And he'd give you his note. "Go back out there, do it. We're doing it again." And then we do it again. And sometimes you go, "Still fucking shit. No." Like, you know, you'd be like, "Oh," you know, it's like trying to please the teacher. And then he would never say, "Brilliant, well done." He would just go, "Moving on." And he'd give you the thumbs up, and that was it. The thumbs up from Johan was like, "Yo, I did it. You know, he was very good, and I think he put my character on a course for success, because without him, if I had the wrong director to start with, the biggest job I had, he set me on that course to just go, you know, even like, don't be in a scene if you've got nothing to give. You know, he was also very good at going, look, there's 10 Vikings on this long ship, 10 character names. They're all trying to do stuff because they haven't got the character you've got. One guy wants to man the rigging. One guy wants to row. I want to let them. If there's nothing you can add to this scene, just get out of it. Just try and just sit, read a book, you know, whatever. You know, it's just, because then, what's Rollo doing? Yeah, he's not manning the rigging. He's like, where's Rollo? Where's Rollo? So when you come on screen and you have something, you've got, they can't wait to see Rollo again. And he's the guy that instilled all that in me. Just let it breathe. Let the audience come to you. There's no rush to tell everybody what's going on with your character, because you see the bigger picture. You see 6 seasons. You don't see 1 season. Yeah, he's great. Really, really amazing.
So did he? Now I have to ask, because I'm sure you know, but did he ever play any Stackabo music for you?
Stackabo. He didn't want us to know. And I remember when we found out, he had a personal assistant, Sebastian, and I think we were down the pub and we found out, and then he was like, "Who told you?" But he's great, and he's just very talented. I mean, Robin, the singer, came down to set. He's one of his friends, and he was very connected to music and fashion and things. He is a bit of a mad professor. But the other thing, you asked me as well what he added to the show, like learn the acting, is that he reinforced that we were doing something different. You know, just because you've seen Braveheart and William Wallace and his men run into battle going, "Ah!" with their painted faces and their barbarians and their crazy hair, their long hair, it doesn't mean that's what the Vikings are going to do. And it doesn't mean that's what we're going to do. If we're going to do a new show, we're going to make it stand out from the rest, even if it's not historically accurate. A lot of the time it was like, you know, it would try and be like, when it comes to the sacrifices, for instance, we're going to do a Viking sacrifice. We're not going to just have a head on a chopping board because we saw Mary Queen of Scots. We're just not a chopper. The Vikings want to see, you know, the executioner, look them eye to eye and have a chance of going to Valhalla. So sometimes it was about following what actually the Vikings. Sometimes it was just, let's make our show stand out from the rest. So even if the Vikings were, you know, it was like, they're going to be the Navy SEALs. So let's have the Saxons run into battle on that beach, terrified of us. And let's just have us walk. Boom, boom, intensity. And as we get closer, the axe comes back. And then when we get close enough to clash shields, death, murder, destruction. And then, you know, the whites of the eyes, then it's terrifying. He was like, I've not seen that. Have you? No. Well, we're going to be the first to do it. And then he was great at that. And then it empowered us after he left. So I say, I'm not going to name the director, but there is a story where a director came who was more of a journeyman who hadn't done his research. I mean, brilliant director. It's nothing to do with his craft. It's about we're making this different show and we've got this responsibility. And we had a sacrifice scene, when Björn's coming of age, and we came in the morning and it was all set up for what looked like the head on the chopping block and that's wham bam, thank you, ma'am, we're off, next scene. And we kind of said, nah, what's this? And he was like, says it in the script, doesn't it? We're doing a sacrifice. You're going to chop his head off. And you stand here and you stand here and you pass it. And we're like, whoa. Has Michael approved this? And he's like, yep. And we're like, I don't think he has. Or if he has, I don't think he's seen this setup. And he's like, oh, how do you? And Mike, well, the Vikings would have looked each other in the eyes and, maybe even just hold his hair up or something. We got to just make it different. Make it not seem like how do you know all this stuff? And it was me. I said, because I read some books. Did you not bother reading anything about Vikings before you came here? And we're on season 2 or something like that. And then he takes a phone call with Michael. It's really early in the morning. No one wants to wake Michael up because he's obviously in England and he's got some days off and he's writing the next scripts. We don't hear, I wasn't privy to the phone call, but I did see him pacing around talking to Michael and doing a lot more. He was quite ruthless with us. And then we see this all like, yep, yeah, okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, okay, yeah. He's like, so we're just going to take an extra 20 minutes and set this up. And we're like, we've won. But then he got a little shirty and he turned around and he said, because look, we're trying to do something different here. And he said, it's just a TV show. And Gustav went, not to us, it isn't. And I was like, it was like, that's what we've kept. Our cast is really loyal to each other. And, we're like, what do they say? The links in a chain.
Yeah.
It was a really nice moment. That's why it's not about the director. It's more about that moment of unity that we all had. And we're making something different here.
Yeah, you're portraying a group of people. And you are a group of people, and you're there all the time.
Yeah.
As that group of people. So obviously you're going to have that. Like a director who just comes in to do a few shows.
Yeah.
They kind of have to listen to. I assume. So was that the feeling you had, like shooting the first couple of episodes that you were doing something unique, something special already?
Yeah, but in that same token, definitely, I am. Like I said, I'm a self-proclaimed history nut. I love this kind of stuff. This is the kind of perfect, and I got my dream. This is the show I would want to be stuck in for 6 seasons. This is, if I'm going to have one go at this career, I'd be happy here. Playing Viking for 6 years. So I didn't want to let it go. So I'm reading these scripts going, this is something special. Gustav's in the back of a minibus in season 1 and we're reading, these scripts are great. And then like the new scripts came through and they were a little bit weird. It was the sacrifices and things. Uppsala. And we're like, it's a bit crazy. Like upside down human sacrifices. They're sacrificing horses and dogs. And this might freak out the public. They're not, they might just switch off. Animal rights, all this kind of stuff. And we're like, is anyone actually going to watch this show? And we did doubt it. Me and Gustav sat in the back going, I don't know, we'll probably start looking for a new job in season 2 because every show you have to wait until the viewing figures come in, the reviews, before you get the season 2. It's not a given, even when the reviews are good sometimes. So we did doubt it. And then the culmination of it was when we got invited to San Diego Comic-Con. And we weren't in the biggest hall. We were in a big hall, but we weren't in the Hall H, the famous one. But we were all really nervous. It was Catherine, me, Gustav, Travis, and George Blagden, and Michael Hurst, and then the producers. And we were backstage, and we could hear. And we're like, this is promising, but still thinking people are just stamping their feet or hitting their. We go out in the first 3 rows of Vikings, dressed as Vikings with their shields, going. We take the stage. I put my hand up, and we're like, we've got a show. And it just felt so good to just be, because for me, it's like, I belong. We're coming back. Yeah, it was great. And they've been really loyal ever since as well.
Yeah, as I said, it's a great show. So obviously those things like cemented you as a group. So how was it being on set together, like with all the actors and?
Well, we set it up, and I kind of. He's such a modest guy that, if he was sitting here right now, and I can even tell if you were like, hey, Clive said this, he'd be like, nah. But Travis, he never takes responsibility for these things, but he set up the show in a way where, that very first scene where Ragnar and Rollo at the top of the hill and we're fighting, and he's Bruder, and I throw him the axe, and that was the first thing we shot together. And it really was at the top of a mountain. It was like an hour to get there, and then it was a big hike up a hill. And Johan Renck had chosen it because he could see the whole of Lugalore. And when we got up there, it was just mist. And he was like, my God, we might as well be in a studio. It was just this whiteout. And slowly, as the scene played out, we started to see it. And it's actually even better because it gets revealed. But we were at the bottom of the hill, and they have unions for the cameramen, the sound department. There's all these things like, only a cameraman's meant to pick up this because of insurance, of expensive equipment. There's all this stuff. And we have cranes and things. The grips have these giant cranes with wheels. And Travis was just there. And he's like, you can't touch that. And he's just picking up 2 crates. He's like, Clive. And I'm like, picking up as much as we can carry. And everyone, when the lead actor does that, you can't be the one guy that's not carrying something up the hill. And from that day on, it was kind of like that. It was like, what needs going up the hill? We're all going to do it. We're all going to muck in. And the Irish, they're beautiful human beings, and they're so giving. But if they see that and you become, but they also don't. If you don't pull your weight, you know about it too. And we just kind of mucked in like that. And now and again, we'd have the odd problem with a guest artist who'd come in, and they'd been on another show, for instance, and they were expecting a bit more, a bit better food, or maybe some proper table service and proper silverware and stuff. And you might know, just shove it in a cardboard thing, and you're going to get up there and we get on. The Irish crew, after a while, they decided they wanted to do the French hours, which means you don't get a lunch break, because while things are setting up, they rather, because it's very family orientated, I suppose, they'd rather be able to get home an hour early and put your kids to bed than have a lunch break and work into the night. So it's like, you're setting up, eat your dinner, carry on shooting. And that was their idea, and we were always moving. And I never know why actors complain about this, because the actors are the ones that get the most time off between setups. It's kind of hurry up and wait. And I think actors should only really be heard between action and cut, and then they should stay out of everyone's way. But you would get the odd actor come in and be like, oh God, you could hear them on this Viking show, and like, there's no craft service. It made me march up to the top of the hill. It's pouring with rain. There's just a tent. One heater, it's broken, but it brought us together. Yeah. And you can see, any fan that's kind of watched the outtakes and stuff and seen the kind of the pranks that Travis would pull on people, and we're all kind of in the middle. It just broke the ice and kind of kept us on our toes, because when you're up at the top of a hill in a hailstorm, it's kind of nice to have a joker.
We've obviously, like, Grimfrost has been to the set in Ireland, and we met you like 8 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago, but can you tell us a little bit about the set there in what's Asheville Studios?
The Asheville Studios.
Yeah. Because it's an amazing place. I loved it. I thought it was amazing what they did with it.
Yeah. It was great. It just grew year by year, because we didn't have a very big budget in season 1. History put everything into it, but it's the History Channel. They're known for documentaries, and we had the marketplace, Kattegat Marketplace, and we had the Lugalore Bay. So they'd made the sand, and we had the lake there that kind of had the jetties. But all of those buildings outside in season 1 were a bit like those old cowboy sets you've seen, where it's just the wall and we go behind, it's the scaffolding, or it's just empty inside. And then all the interiors were filmed in the studios. And then by season 2, they kind of used that money, the influx of money for season 2, to kit it out. So in season 2, a lot of those buildings outside were kitted out, and we had livestock. We had pigs and cattle and things inside, which is the Viking way of keeping warm. And so it did feel like almost like a really cool reenactment set. It's kind of the fires were burning, and it's very special. It just built.
That must help actually getting into the character and into the whole thing, because you can kind of imagine being.
That's my joke. My joke is, it's almost like it's like we won a competition. Someone just went, here's a shield, here's an axe, there's a whole Viking village, go play, and put some money in your bank as well. And you're like, what? What's the catch?
Wow. Sounds like a dream job to me.
Yeah.
So, you were on this series for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
So how many months out of a year were you on set?
Season 1 was just 9 episodes. which is why the first episode of season 2, the big fight between the brothers, was actually meant to be. It was written to be the climactic episode of season 1, but history only commissioned 9 episodes, so Michael just tagged it on to the first of season 2. And then season 3, 4, 5, 6, they went up to 20 episodes. They increased it, which is a little Easter egg for you. It's because Michael only really intended to write a miniseries about Ragnar Lothbrok, so we didn't tie Travis in for more than 10 episodes. I think it was he had a season 2 option, so 20 episodes. So then when they were like, "This is a success, just let's make this story about Ragnar," and Michael's like, "Great, but our lead actor." So Travis was like, "Well, I'll sign on to do one more." He's a businessman, right? So he's not going to sign on to do 6. He's like, "I'll sign on to do one more." So they got him by going, "All right, so that's that." But in his contract, he doesn't have, we don't say how many episodes per season. So they upped it to 20 because then they've kind of got 4 seasons. They've got
very
40,
sneaky.
Yeah. Travis didn't see that one coming, but I mean, we were lucky to have him for as long as we did.
Yeah. So how did this, like you told me already, but like it must have been amazing to see the set change so much over the year. I mean, we were there like 8 years ago, but we've come back as well. And you've seen like York being built, and all that kind of. It must be amazing to see how the whole thing develops.
Yeah, I mean, I came back when old Rollo came back for those 3 episodes. I'd been away for a while. I was shooting the TV series Taken, so when I came back, they had even more. They had like Harold's kind of domain when he'd come in, and then there was I didn't even know I saw this big whale carcass, and obviously I didn't know the story because I'd been away. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Yeah, and Adam Copland was on the set, and I was like, it changed already by a season of being away. It looked like it doubled in size, and those battlements as well weren't there when I was there.
That was. Yeah, it was amazing to see at the end, like how they built the wall, the battlements, and like the massive walls. And I actually been up on some of them as well, so that was kind of cool. Just before they started tearing down everything down, actually.
Yeah, the French battlements were fun because they didn't because Paris at the time was more of an island. It didn't have there was no point building the castle, and they were like, well, we're going to build an L-shaped section of the wall, and that was the first time we really used green screen. Before then, they'd only used, what do they call it? They call it like a secondary visual effects or something like that. So it's not like the visual effects would be like creating a dragon or something like that. Secondary visual effects are just, you add a few snow on the top of the mountains to make it more look like the fjords, and you might add some sheep into a field in the background, but nothing in the foreground. Yeah. But that's the first time when we're like, we're going to have to build the whole of Paris. So there's going to be a massive green screen here. But we had the battlements, all those fights going up the siege towers. They'd built a moat, but the moat was big, but it was only deep. It went on an angle, and it was only in the middle. Was it 9 feet deep? The rest of it was like 3-4 foot deep. So you'd imagine all these stunt guys and myself getting told to fling ourselves off like I don't know how 12 feet high in the air. And you're like, you've got to land in the middle, otherwise you'll break your back.
Oh shit!
So it wasn't completely complete.
That sounds unsafe.
Yeah,
but did. You did do a lot of stunts yourself then?
I did. I mean, I did that one. There's a funny story about that actually, because I remember they wanted to do a special setup. So it's the moment when Rollo is fighting the Frankish on the top of the turret, and I see Princess Gisela for the first time. I lose my concentration, and then they push the siege tower back, and I fall down, and they wanted it to look like Rollo had died. It's this long fall, and he disappears under the water, and who knows if he's ever going to see him again. But they had this crane camera set up from above me, and they said, look, we want you to do the last 4 moves, and then when we say go, you fling yourself backwards, and then this camera is going to track you all the way down into the water, splash, and try and stay under the water as long as you can, so we can just keep on the water and you don't come up. So I'm like, great, I'm up for everything, and I'm rehearsed it with the stunt guys. There was a moment when the producers came outside and they're like, is Clive going to do that? And I was. And then Franklin was like, oh, no, of course not. No, we're going to get, And then the producers walked away and he was like, and I was like, yeah, I am. So we got up there. So the first time I did it, I flung myself off. I'm bare-chested as well. So, a belly flop hurts at the best of times. A back flop without, I remember the pain of, because you're falling and you go like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and then slam. It took all the air out of me, which was a bonus because then I could stay under the water longer. and all the lights are shining. So I can see the silhouette. So I can't hear cut, but I see Franklin Henson's big, brick shit house of a man, our stunt coordinator. And I can see this body coming over. And I think, okay, if he's in the lighting, they must have called cut. So I go, oh, and I come up and he puts his hand out. And I think he's grabbing out to pull me out of the water. And he just goes, "You got another one in you?" And I was in so much pain. And the reason why is apparently I threw myself off so far that the crane camera had come down and it would just focused on my groin. My head was completely out of shot. Then he showed me it back and it's just this body going, "Roo!" They're like, now this time, and this is the scary one, they said, this time we don't want you to fight because we've got that. We want you to do, it's almost, you remember that trust exercise when you just fall backwards and people catch you? I don't know how, 12, 14 feet up in the air, I don't know how, I might be exaggerating, I can't picture it now, but the top of the turrets. And they say, hold your axe, and then when we get action, you have to go exactly when we say action because this crane is going to go, we want you just to fall back, and then you should be in the right place for the crane to catch you or fall. And that was the worst because I'd already, I think, had bruising on my back, and then it's just like falling backwards, and then you're like, it's going to happen, and slam. But we had to do a lot of, and we had a brilliant stunt team. So, I mean, I'm not one of these actors who's going to be, we do all our own stunts and things. But we kind of did at the battles. There was always stunt, you'd have a stunt double and things like that. You would have someone to teach you it. There'd always be people to step in. But such a big show, all the best stuntmen were needed to fight against. There's so many people. You can't do this kind of job and fight extras because they're not trained, and someone will get hurt. So the best stuntmen were reserved to fight against. So there wasn't really anyone to step in. The one stunt that I didn't do or wasn't allowed, and I think I did kind of volunteer myself and then stupidly, straight away went, what am I doing? Was when Rollo gets trampled on by the horses. Because you can't predict what the horse is going to do. So we had Brendan, who is probably about a foot smaller than me, built like an ox. That's all we had. And they were like, okay, we're going to put all the tattoos on Brendan. He looked nothing like me, but they just needed the back, So when I saw him do it, and he literally body checked a horse and went flying on the floor, and I was like, there's no telling what could have happened. But they let me do the trampling on. So once they'd got that shot with Brendan, they got me lying on the floor, and they had 12 horses, 6 on each side. And they said, look, they're going to be like 4 meters away from 2 meters either side of you. You're going to be completely safe, Clive. You're going to lie on the floor. The camera's on the side. And as the horses come, galloping up, they're going to gallop over you. And if at the exact moment, if you can kind of like spasm, it'll look like they're trampling over you. So I'm like, I'm good with this. And then, bizarrely, it's probably one of the scariest things I've ever done because I lay on the floor, I close my eyes, and all I can hear is, because my ear is against the ground, and one take I did go, because I just thought, where are they? And they're still like, 3 meters away from me. So then I'm quickly going back to sleep, kind of knocked out. But we got the shot. But that was terrifying.
I actually, this is going to sound crazy, but I actually have an experience like that.
Yeah.
We filmed the video for one of our songs, like in 2008 or something, and for this video, for this shot, I was supposed to lie on the ground, and there was this massive horse. I think more like almost 7 feet, tall, right? Almost as tall as I am, like super big. Oh, actually taller than I was. Super big horse, and I was gonna lie, and it was actually like asphalt next to me. So it was just like a piece of grass, like on the side.
Yeah. And
the horse was gonna ride around me, and you're gonna see like the grass and the just the legs of the horse.
Yeah.
But that was right next to me, and it wasn't like racing or anything. It was just not galloping, but it was. I also had to lie with my eyes closed, and I could just hear the hooves right next to my head. Yeah. I was like, oh, shit, I hope nothing happens now.
I also had visions as well. When I was at primary school, I had a swimming teacher. When we used to do like every year, we'd have like a month of intense swimming. And the swimming teacher at the swimming baths had been trampled on by horses. And I still have that vision of being this kid in the swimming pool looking up at her in her shorts. And she had clumps of skin taken out of her legs. So I know what horses can do to you.
Yeah, I mean, the the woman riding the horse said, well, horses, they don't intentionally trample people.
It's nothing
How about
personal.
unintentional? Like, that must hurt as well. Oh, well.
It's
So-
nothing personal.
No,
You're
no.
just there.
All right. Let's go back a little bit to talk about Rollo in the series. And you already touched upon it a little bit. So here's the hot potato. Let's talk about it right away. Is he the father of Björn Ironside?
I believe he is. I think the point of that storyline is that he has his mother's looks. He has the build and frame of Rollo, and the prowess on the battlefield. But he thinks and acts like his father. And his father is Ragnar, meaning, what's the old saying? Is anyone can be a father. It takes a strong man to be a dad. So that's the point. Ragnar is his dad. And I think that's the point of it, that Rollo wants to claim him by blood. I mean, there were no paternity tests back then, so we don't know. But I think that's his whole game plan is, you're my son, I'm being your uncle, I'm the one that's looked after you all this time. But he's also selfish, and he's also deserted him. But Ragnar is who's brought him up, and he has the mind of Ragnar, and he has the sensibilities of Ragnar. And I think that's the biggest axe to Rollo's heart, is that when Björn says, you're not my father. Yeah, and it's obviously he knows he is. And I think Lagertha knows. I think it's given away, by the way, the conversation before with Lagertha and Rollo, that it's clear that he is. And I love that. I mean, did you know as well that when we first started making it, it's a funny story, actually. Michael sat us down. We went for a dinner with Michael Hurst and a lot of the cast, and he said, like, History Channel just presented him with like a one-page A4 side of what they're allowed to show and what they're not allowed to show on the channel. It's the first ever series, and they're playing by this rule book that was written when they made documentaries, and it's like you can't show certain sex scenes, you can't show violence to a certain. I think it was something like you can't show blood and guts. It can only be you can stab swords, but you can't see blood coming out. And all this silly. And he was like, do they know what they bought? They bought a show called Vikings. It kind of does what it says on the tin. Like they deluded, and then he had to work around that. So when we first started filming the show, to kind of just give History Channel more confidence that we were going to give them a great show, Michael and the producers arranged to film two versions of certain scenes. So, for instance, I don't know, Aslag in the waterfall when she's kind of naked, there will be a version shown in America where you don't really see her body very much, where in the rest of the world, there's probably more nudity involved. There's certain scenes in battles where you'll see more gratuity and blood and guts than you do in the American version. But what it also meant is that the American version had to be something like 46 minutes long because they had to have commercials. But when it was sold around the world, now it's on Netflix that the streamers now don't have any commercials. It was allowed to be longer. So it started off just with violence and nudity, and then it actually suddenly ended up with certain scenes would be cut from the American version just to make time. So the rest of the world got to see certain storylines that America didn't.
Oh, wow.
And some of them were Rollo and Lagertha scenes. There's that beautiful scene that some people might not have seen, some people might have done. There's a scene where Rollo and Lagertha are talking on a bench, and they have like a private conversation, and it's clear when you piece together from that very first scene when Rollo says, he puts his hand on her arm and when Ragnar's outside. If you piece it together, it's very clear they had a relationship. And some of the Americans, when I've met them and done question and answers, they don't get it. They think, how can Rollo be Björn's father? And how you just had an obsession with Lagertha, she's Ragnar's. And you're like, I can see why they'd think that, because they hadn't had all the information. And there were like, I wish I could think other, but there's other characters that have had scenes, and sometimes scenes just get cut.
Yeah.
There is a scene which I wish that was in it, which was when Rollo finds out that Siggy's been sleeping with King Horik's son, which is so messed up on so many levels. I had a scene where I got to demolish our house because it was the last time he was going to be living with Siggy, and they just said, look, you can go to town. And they set up GoPros in the room. They had 3 cameras going. It was a one-take shot. And they said, look, don't hurt yourself, but you can smash this to pieces. And we would love because they had an open fire in the middle of the room, and they said at some point, just hit that to the fire, and if it sets on fire, that's great. We got all the fire extinguishers, the fire department are ready to put it out, but and I had so much fun because it was really Rollo just letting loose. I was smashing tables, punching things, just headbutting things and just losing it. And everything's on fire around me. And it got cut from the show. And I don't know if because I probably overacted and it was awful. I have no idea. But it's one of those scenes sometimes the director will be like, it just doesn't move the story on. We've got it. And they call it killing your babies.
Yeah.
Sometimes the writer just has to let a scene go and he loves it, but there's just no place for it.
Yeah. So obviously, especially in the first season, the triangle drama between Björn, Lagertha, and Ragnar. Between Ragnar, Rollo, and Lagertha it's like one of the key elements. So how did that come about? Because obviously Ragnar and Rollo, you already mentioned that they weren't brothers at all. And so what was the? Did you discuss this with Michael Hurst? Why this was the approach that he wanted to go, or like and what was the thought behind it?
I discussed it with Johan Renck. That I'd mentioned that we had these little scenes where he would come up to me and say, "Just do it, maybe do it like this." We had one of those moments where he said, "You slept with this woman. This is not like a silly childish obsession. Let's play that." And I can only assume that he might have had a conversation with Michael about, hey, there's this take we did, and maybe they'd, because Michael didn't. Michael, again, is this really lovely, has this mischievous smile sometimes, and I would talk to Michael about it, and Michael would just simply go. So it was like, is that a yes or is that a no? So I think he was, I think that the idea was hatched in Michael's brain, and he was obviously just seeing how it played out. It's always, it's like it's always there as a weapon to play up your sleeve, to develop it when the story's going in that direction. So I didn't have confirmation, but it was one of those storylines that was a no-brainer really. About you've got two brothers. What does he? How can this brother? He's beating him in life. He's beating him in position and status. He's even getting the woman and the children before him, and it's it's the older brother, and you feel, oh my God, my younger brother is just beating me at everything. So it was kind of there for the taking, I think. So yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had this thought though when you were talking about Michael Hurst and his little smile. I was just thinking of Steve Carell when he plays Brick Tamland in Anchorman, and he goes, "No, yes."
Yeah, no, yes.
All right, that's beside the point. All right. So what goes through Rollo's mind?
Oh, sorry. Actually, just to go back. Sorry, it just reminded me. Also, like I said, it's there for the taking, but also it added so much drama because it gave me, as Rollo, higher stakes. So when people turn around and they say Rollo betrayed Ragnar, how could he do this? I would argue that Ragnar betrayed Rollo so many times before Rollo betrayed him, but did the ultimate betrayal. Because there's back and forth. There's childish brotherly kind of fights. But you think about when you add Lagertha into it, if they had a relationship. So Rollo defends Lagertha about the death of Canute over his arm ring, swears on his arm ring in front of Earl Haraldsson to protect Lagertha, to protect his brother. He does that for his brother. He does it for Lagertha. It doesn't matter. It's a big thing to lie and swear on your arm ring. He even gets he gets the Joker smile. He gets disfigured because he won't give his brother's whereabouts away, where he's hiding at Floki's house. There's so many things, and there's so many things that are connected to Lagertha that just fuel him. And then obviously when you play in the fact that Björn might be his son, even in Paris when Björn goes up the battlements and gets shot with the arrows and he's on his deathbed, and it's Rollo that comes in and gets down by his side. Ragnar is just still going, wow, we're going to fight. And he's, Rollo's seeing this, and it just fuels it, and it just adds so much more. So when you see the betrayal from the outside, when you deal with it the way I did, it makes it so much easier to justify it, because you're like, this is what Rollo's seeing.
So you'd say that all these things that went into, like, that was what's going through his mind when he finally makes the choice to betray Ragnar.
Yeah, that's it. He's just had enough. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah. So, but do you think it was the right move for the story? I mean, could Rollo have become the Duke of Normandy in some other way, or is that like the only way you saw for him to do that? Is that the most, like, there's a specific reason why I asked this, and you touched on it before as well, because obviously a lot of fans of the show were very, very upset about that.
Yeah.
So, like, do you see any other way for Rollo to achieve, like, to get to the point of becoming the Duke of Normandy? And what's your thought about the fans being so upset with well, actually, the how the show was developed?
I don't think there is. I mean, I think Ragnar's a narcissist, and I think Ragnar got carried away with his own journey, and he wasn't kind of being fair. He wasn't giving reward to his loyal subjects, let alone his brother. He wanted it all for himself. Did Rollo steal Paris from Ragnar, or did he just take it first? You know, he left him there. I think what's the irony is that what the Duke of Normandy is famous for in history is creating the feudal system, which is giving land to people in order for them to pay taxes, and ultimately you stay in charge, but you give people power. You give people, and it's funny that Rollo is famous for that. And in our show, that's the one thing he could never get from his brother. Ragnar wouldn't do that. Maybe if Ragnar had been forward-thinking like Rollo, then there would have been no reason to betray him.
Yeah. And I guess also the way the story was built, a betrayal was not only inevitable, it was necessary. I guess.
Drama is built on conflict. It's like those reality TV shows when you see people and they're like, you've got the bad guy in the house, like the Big Brother or whatever it is. I don't watch them, but there's always the bad guy. And from my understanding, it's usually when you give the audience the power to vote, they vote off the bad guy first. Oh, we hate him. He's got to go. And then they go, well, the show's boring now. Yeah. Because everyone's happy families and everyone's just getting up and cooking for themselves. And, and it's that conflict that makes it fun to watch. And
totally.
Yeah.
So how did you, like, the fans' reaction? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what do you think about that?
I actually was I was at a convention quite recently, and someone came up to me and she said, I love your character. I love him so much. He's like my favorite character, and that kind of like I love to hate him. And she goes, but I recently watched the show again from start. And she goes, I hated you. She forgot how horrible Rollo was at the beginning. She's like, oh, because she went on that journey, and I love that. The one thing that I feel like I did my job well. Not everyone, sometimes you meet people, it's horrible. Yeah. But the biggest compliments to me that make me go, I'm in the right profession is when people go, I hated you in season 1. I love to hate you in season 2. I kind of, despite myself, loved you a little bit in season 3. And it's kind of like you've won people over. But the character is.
See, that's like everybody loves a good villain, don't they? Yeah. And I think what makes Rollo one of my favorite characters of Vikings, or my favorite character in Vikings, is the journey that he actually makes. Yeah. Because as you said, like, he has the thing where he's pretty much his whole life is basically smashed to pieces. It's reduced to nothing, really. And then he has to build himself up and make this journey and make all these difficult decisions.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think is a very multifaceted character compared to some of the other characters that, like, their lineage it's not so much like up and down. It's like an upwards trajectory, and then maybe at the end they get a little dip. But so in that sense, I think Rollo is very interesting as a character as well, and he makes the whole show interesting, I think.
Do you know, I have a Viking fantasy. What I really would love, and the one thing I wish, because Rollo was never put to death, so to speak. We never really saw what happened to Rollo. I kind of had a closure when I came back, but we weren't able to really see, because the show's not called Francia, right? It's called Vikings. You can't spend too long in Francia. But what I would love is one more meeting between Ragnar and Rollo, because the one thing, brotherly love, would have been Ragnar was a drug addict, when he met him, and he needed some tough love. And I think that would have been a scene I would have wanted to see. And I think about it all the time, and I really want to pin Michael Hurst down. And I think he's busy doing some incredible stuff now. But for my own selfish reasons, would love to have a spin-off show that was set in the same timeline as when Rollo left Kattegat. Because I was able to come back. It was about 15 years, and the sons of Ragnar had grown up. Remember when Ragnar comes down, he goes, "Who wants to be king?" He disappeared for 15 years. So if we set a show that suddenly was about, and my pitch would be, it's called Vikings, the Norman Conquests, because you don't have to stay on Rollo. It would be about William the Conqueror, who's this incredible, warlord that, as far as I know, has not really been portrayed on screen in a serious way. But season 1 would pick up on that timeline with Rollo and Gisela, and that allows Ragnar to still be alive. So therefore we can have, if Travis is up for it, a guest appearance, and those brothers can reunite, and it would tell a story that we never saw because he's dead. Yeah. And people go, well, they never. It would be lovely to think that they did. Like in that time he disappeared, he went over, even like a ninja, kind of broke into to Paris or the Normandy, wherever it is, Rouen, and just have a one-on-one with Rollo, and they put it to rest. And maybe Rollo can actually, you need to get off this bloody drugs that you're on and sort yourself out. Go back there and your father, and have that. I mean, that's Rollo's inner dialogue. It's not necessarily what Michael would write, but I just want that scene.
Yeah.
And then what that allows is, Björn to come, because there's that timeline when Björn's adventuring, Björn Ironside, there's nothing to say he didn't come back. There was obviously something sent when Rollo brings the soldiers over for Ivar. Someone must have been over there and messaged. There's a timeline there that's not been explored. And my ultimate dream would be able to put closure to Rollo's death, because in history, well, as we just talked about, there's the truth, the real truth. But there is a documentation about how when he died, he was still hedging his bets until the very end, and he sent £100 in weight to the Christian church and then slaughtered 100 Christians at the same time. Just kind of like, Odin, God, where am I going? And my pitch that I wanted in my backstory that I wrote for myself for Rollo was that's what he did. He went to Ivar. Ivar gave him all those jewels to say thank you for fighting on my, and I had my Frankish soldiers, and I would have loved to have sailed back, murdered all those Frankish soldiers on the boat, threw them overboard in a Viking sacrifice, or found an island and did a burial ground, whatever it was, but they're Frankish, and then got back and said, I got all this gold for the Christian church. Aren't I the hero? That would have been the perfect ending for Rollo for me.
That's actually really interesting. I would watch that.
There you go.
Travis, you have his number. Maybe you two can talk Michael Hurst into that. So, what was your, you already talked about kind of your favorite episode of the scene, like the favorite experience, but what was your favorite scene to shoot as Rollo?
Do you know, because it's been a little while, I keep forgetting scenes that I filmed, and when they pop into my head, I'm like, oh, and I have a new kind of found love for them. Like the other day, I was thinking about that scene when after I get trampled on by horses, Athelstan kind of nurses me back, and I grab him by the throat, and I'm just, I'm not strong enough to kill him. And do I really want to kill him? Because I do think that there's a beautiful storyline, another one that's really not said in words between, it starts in episode 2 when Ragnar finds Athelstan, and it's just, he's got a monk. It's like this special, this treasure, and Rollo didn't get it. He knows, he already senses that this human being is going to come to bite him in the ass, and he kind of wants to learn from him. But that scene, it's not my favorite scene, but that's what I mean. These scenes, I completely forgot about the scene. Someone reminded me, and I'm like, oh.
So why is that scene what makes that scene exceptional? I mean, obviously you say that he kind of wants to kill him, but
no, for me it shows that tender side to him again. It makes him he's a many-layered onion. It's like he's there, and he's like, this guy's saved his life, and he's still going for enough strength. But again, my favorite scene really is, I mean, I get asked this question a lot, and I always go to the fight with Björn that we already talked about.
Oh yeah.
Is it really? I mean, because it's more of an action scene. I mean, I loved all my first scenes with Travis, actually, just getting to know the two brothers when they're hashing out the plan to go west. You know, the bit that all I should have done is that with the candle, and I didn't. I thought I'll be really strong and I'll just burn the candle. I'd put out the candle to show that the sun's going out, and ended up going home with two massive blisters on my fingers because I did it like 10 times. And Gabriel Byrne was an incredible actor as well.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I got to do with him.
Yeah, he's legendary.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, so what was the overall experience then? You know, of playing Rollo. Like, what was the most fun of playing a Viking in general? Well, like,
the most honest answer is because I got to play both.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day also if I couldn't play Rollo, who would I play? And yeah, I can have a funny answer and be like Lagertha or whatever, you know, because she's the coolest character or whatever. But the most honest answer I could come up with is I'd play a Saxon because I've played a Viking, and it would be great to just do the whole thing again from the other side. It's like if you could live your life again, you'd do everything differently because you did it that way. Mm-hmm. But I went off on a tangent. What was the question? It was about how.
Oh, well, like what was like the overall experience, of portraying Rollo?
Yeah.
Like, and what was the most fun playing?
So that's
Viking
it. So
in
I got to
general?
play both. So I got to play the barbarian berserker, real Viking. You know, I think it's fair to say if there was a true representation of the archetypal Viking, Rollo is it.
Yeah.
There's lots of Vikings in that show, but Rollo, long hair, beard, warrior, berserker. It's kind of every boy's dream. If you want to play a Viking, what's it saying? Always be yourself, unless you can be a Viking.
Exactly.
And always be a Viking.
Yes.
But then I got to I got to transcend that, and what I call it's the pauper to a prince. You know, you get to play this barbarian that suddenly turns into Fabio. He's got this stupid hair.
Yeah.
So I got, it was really fulfilling. And also the best thing about it is to be able to play a character from the age of maybe 28, 30 years old to 60 plus. Because I have never seen a show where the producers have allowed the actors to follow that character through to the end. It was always like, you play the younger Rollo, and then when we come back for season 3, we're going to get this 60-year-old actor to play old Rollo. And they had enough, confidence in me and Travis and Gustav and everyone else that got to survive to play the older versions. And that for me is the icing on the cake, to be able to go, right, I got to have this journey all the way through and then transform the body. And it's tough because I loved young barbarian Rollo. I am a feral, kind of caveman. I'm definitely a mountain man. So it was tough to let that go, but the actor in me saw the challenge of taking on the new role.
So Vikings in general, I mean, the Viking Age in Vikings has become like a global phenomenon, and much thanks to Vikings, the TV series. So how does it feel to be a part of that, to have like elevated this part of like this culture from this little small corner of the earth into like a global thing?
Yeah, it feels incredible. Did we think that it was going to have? No. But it's also learning along the way as well, and realizing that kind of, it's definitely some of the runes and the meanings and things had kind of almost been taken over by, the Third Reich and kind of like real far right Nazis and stuff that had kind of like almost stolen it and kind of like regurgitated it into something horrible. And it was nice to actually kind of portray a culture from the inside out and then go, hey, this is what this stands for. It's not, it's kind of like, we did more for Vikings than Hitler tried to do to ruin it. It's kind of, it feels great that we could actually kind of tell a discursive story as well, because it's one of those, the history nerd in me wants to say that it's the one case in history where it was recorded by, history is always recorded by the invaders. And it wasn't this time. This was the invaded were the only ones that wrote things down. The Christian monks changed it all, and it's been portrayed in one way, which over years has been censored and censored and censored. Like even when I got to do the Real Vikings documentary and seeing the original letter that King Aila received and sent, and knowing that there was so much censored out of it, and we're led to believe these monsters that came from the sea and that burnt and ruined everything, and the raping and murdering. And then you read this letter, and it's like there's little things that were left out, like the same people that it's insinuated that there was a deal that was reneged on, that he actually did like the fashions, the same beards and the hairstyles that you yourself had, they've come back. So it's not painting over the things that the Vikings did, but it's also trying to make it more discursive and go, actually, there are two sides to this, and it's been recorded by one side for far too long. That felt nice to be actually able to put history back.
And I think it's amazing as well. You can tell like how massive the show has been globally, because like we played a festival in Mexico and there were local Vikings coming to the show. So yeah. So that was kind of fun. Anywho, going back to your interest in Vikings and the Viking Age, what do you find most fascinating about Vikings in general? Like is there a specific fact that you feel is that you learn that's like, wow, I didn't know the Vikings did that, or it's amazing that they did that?
There's loads along the way, and some of them as well. I mean, I love phrase and fable, and I love kind of like just myth as well, and like a little. I'm a sucker for a pub quiz. I remember weird little things about things, and I know a lot about nothing and nothing about a lot. So like the first thing that comes into my head is I remember reading about the phrase "cut your nose off to spite your face." They believe that comes from a Viking thing, because they realized that there was a nunnery somewhere, and the Mother Superior had heard that the Vikings were going to be marching up the stairs, and they were going to murder, and they're going to rape and take God's virginity from you all, and you need to spite your lip and cut your nose, and then these Vikings, when they come through, they'll be so appalled that they won't rape you. And then apparently they all did it. All these nuns, they cut the end of their noses, they split their lips, they're bleeding, and the Vikings storm through into the nunnery, and they see these women, and they're so appalled that they just burn the monastery down. So it's like, you cut your nose off to spite your face. It's probably not true, but I love all those kind of little stories that have just a moment. Yeah,
it's kind of like this gallows humor that goes through everything. It's like one of my favorite. I was actually going to go into that when we talked about Viking sacrifices and stuff. Like, and there's this passage. I think it is in the Jomsviking saga. I might be wrong here actually, but there's this bunch of Vikings who lose a battle, and all the survivors are going to be beheaded. So they put them all down on their knees and start chopping people's head off. And they get to this one guy who has really long blonde braided hair, and he said, "Well, hang on a minute. I just like, you can chop my head off, but I want you to save my hair." So they have this guy like hold his braids, right? So the minute the guy swings, he pulls his head back, and he gets his arms chopped off. Those little things I love about like the whole mythology and the legends and sagas.
Yeah.
But to me, I think the most fascinating thing is, and if you ever been out like on a dinghy, like really far out to sea, the fact that they traveled across the Atlantic all the way to North America and back is insane.
It is insane.
In open ships. It is beyond insane. It's hard to fathom, So it to me, that's one of the most fascinating things about Vikings, how they dare to do that, because they must have known that there's like a pretty good chance we're not going to come back. Yeah.
All the little things as well. I mean, now I'm thinking, actually, I just love paganism, and I'm always at home at nature and things, but it's just the way that you would see the dew on the morning grass and believe that that's probably the sweat from the horse, and the fingernail. I remember reading as well, because obviously they thought Loki would come back in a boat entirely made of human fingernails, and the idea of biting your fingernails and flicking them on the floor, you're helping him build your boat. Yeah, there's little things like that. I just remember, it's just that's what I love about it. It's otherworldly.
Yeah,
and it's almost fantastical. And to quote Michael Hurst, it's like Game of Thrones and things. That is fantasy. It's written by one person. It's dragons, but this almost seems fantastical. But to a Viking, it was real as Jesus Christ coming back and going in a cave and being dead and then coming back out of the cave. It was real to a Christian. and we still, and if there's a lot of people that still believe that happened, and the Vikings would believe that, and that's what makes it. When you're playing with that as a TV show, and you're like, no, these characters really do believe in it. It's not like the myth of dragons, the myth of this is, Jormungand and Fenrir, and this is real, and I love it.
Is that a feature of Viking history that, or is there any other feature of Viking history that you would have loved to have more of in the TV series?
Yeah, I mean, we started off, didn't we, with when Johan brought into it with the Valkyries taking the bodies off.
Oh yeah,
and
that's right.
And we'd have Odin would appear, and I wish there was more of that. I mean, I think I wish I knew. I don't know if they scared away from it a little bit, and they didn't want it to become too fantastical, and they wanted to base it in more of a reality, or if it just became too expensive, or I really don't know the answer, but it did. We had the seer who kind of did the job for us, but it did feel like we didn't make as much of that as that I wanted. I would have loved to explore the gods, and I do remember Michael actually saying that he had an idea about doing a movie and making it more about the gods, because that's the only thing I think we don't really touch on in the show.
Yeah,
is to really, really explore Valhalla and the gods and where we come from, and that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it could have been done really well as well. I mean, dream sequences and stuff. I mean, obviously you have the seer and all that stuff that kind of takes on that just a little bit, but obviously dream reading, if you read the sagas, and it's very big.
That's what I loved in the Norseman, that film, when they in the bit when the burial ground and the warrior comes to life, and they kind of hit on the sagas in a kind of dreamlike way where, did it really happen, or is this what this man believes is happening? This is his imagination, and I really love that part of it. I was a bit jealous, actually.
All right. So I think you actually kind of talked a little bit about this already, so maybe we should skip it. I was going to talk about how, if there was stuff that you can influence as an actor, but you actually did mention that you had ideas that you put forth, and with the sacrifice scene there and all that stuff. But are there stuff that you would have liked to make differently in the story that you couldn't influence, or?
I don't know. I mean, it would have been nice to. It's tough when they make a show that has no end. When you have to make more episodes. Michael's writing all these episodes. It has to keep going, and after a while, you get so many characters. It's tough. I mean, I talked about it's not called Francia, so there's only so much time we could spend in Francia before having to come back to Kattegat. It would have been great to be able to expand the show. It's kind of like the two sides of having one writer. Michael Hirst is an incredible writer. He wrote everything himself, but after a while, you're a sponge and you can only take on so much water. So would Michael have given it to another writer to do a sister show? So like The Walking Dead have done and Game of Thrones are now doing, where you could actually have avenues and you've got characters appearing in. Wouldn't that be incredible? But it would have been impossible, and the integrity of the show definitely wouldn't have survived, because it would have been impossible for Michael to write that. And the main the main kind of dynamo to why this show is so good is him. They've got this show Valhalla now. It's not written by Michael. It's not the same show.
Yeah.
The only way it would have worked is with him to be at the helm of 3 shows simultaneously or something, and it would have been impossible for the.
It's a lot. Just writing that's a thing. You see that you write 10 1-hour episodes.
Yeah.
That's like writing 5 screenplays for a movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy a lot.
What you don't see as well is he's writing these, and then when you're working with actors, it's sometimes like, what's the old saying? You're putting kittens in a box. We're children. Yeah. So when we get these scripts, everyone has their ideas, and they're ringing Michael up, what happens if this, and what if this, and if we did this? And he tries to take on the ideas he likes. He conveniently forgets the ones he doesn't. But he's not one of these guys going, shut up and just do it. He will try and adapt it. He'll take everyone's opinions in. So you imagine you're on episode 5, you've got 5 more episodes to write, or 15 when it went to 20, and then he's updating episode 3 because that's about to shoot and the actors have only just got that. Well, he's trying to deliver episode 6 to the producers to give their notes. I don't know how he did it.
Yeah, I don't envy that job though. Definitely not. So, do you think that Rollo from the TV series, with all his strengths, as you say, like tenacity and all this stuff, but also with his weaknesses. Do you think he would have been a very successful Viking, like if, like in real life, like from what you know about the Viking Age?
Do you think I would have been?
No, the character Rollo.
Rollo
in the TV
would have
series.
been.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think? Do I think Rollo would have been a successful Viking? Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's a short and good answer. We love that. Yeah.
I just thought as well about that scenes because there's only so much time for a TV show. I remember reading because I used to come to Michael all the time and he used to get so annoyed. But in a way, kind of, you can't fault someone for being tenacious and caring. But I remember reading something about there was a tale about in Normandy it might have been Rollo, it might have been someone else, but piling up a wall of dead horses.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of coming to that, and I was like, and we kind of did that with Ragnar when he had the heads from the boat, and the Saxons see this kind of like all these decapitated heads. But I was like, just the smell and just that as a visual sight on screen, just a wall, a 4-story wall of dead horses and things, and the putrid smell and the flies and everything, and coming face to face with that and having a battle, things like that I would bring to Michael all the time. Can Rollo do that? Ragnar's on his way, and obviously we did this beautiful thing about the chains in the River Seine and getting the boats, but that was all my ideas. I was like, what can we have, rotting corpses and things? It's disgusting, really. But
all right, so speaking about if you could be a Viking, if you could be a successful Viking, could Clive Standen be a successful Viking? And if you could time travel back to the Viking Age, is there anything special that you would like to experience or see or be a part of?
Uppsala. As long as I'm not being sacrificed.
Okay. Yeah. But would you be a successful Viking?
Probably not. Probably.
No.
But well, look, this is the old thing, isn't it? Vikings weren't just warriors; they were farmers, they were traders and things. I would have found a job there. I would have.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm a kind of Lucy, my fiance calls me mountain man because I'm hiking. I'm most at home when I'm camping or I'm out and hiking with the dogs and things like that. And I would have found my place out and about. I'm not scared of hard work and being out in the forest, I can easily survive. So I would have found my way of existing. Would I have wanted to go into battle and be at sea? Actually, I love the sea too, but I'm more like being underneath the sea. I'm a scuba diver.
Scuba diving.
Yeah,
nice.
With the first scuba diving Viking. I mean, they're famous for their innovation. I would have been the first Viking to figure out how to breathe underwater.
Exactly. That's a great note to end this little talk. Thank you so much for coming to our little longhouse and having this chat with me. Looking forward to tomorrow when we're gonna have Midsummer Eve festival and go out on long ships and all that stuff together.
And I want to say a big thank you as well, because we're talking about the show that I now filmed. I mean, it's had its 10-year anniversary from when we started. It's been a while, and I feel like it's a big part of my life. I love the show so dearly, and I love the fact that everyone else has enjoyed it so much. It's given me a career.
Yeah.
It's given me so many memories, and you inviting me here has enabled me to go back, if not just for a week, to live the life of a Viking a little bit again. So thank you for that.
Hey, our pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that bell button.